Hmm. The theme tune of Love Story has become a very recent favourite of mine. As I recall, it came out in 1970. In fact, if it was any later, I don't think it would have had any effect on me, to be honest. The equivalents, I think, for my daughters would be Ghost for my older daughter and Titanic for my younger. I suppose perhaps every teenage girl has a favourite love story. One that I'm currently playing just happens to have that title. It certainly struck me that my memory for dates, which became legendary, wasn't there prior to my father's giving me crab lice in 1970. It wasn't there. I don't think I could tell you exact dates prior to that. Not exact dates. Pretty good, pretty close. I can account for every year. And sometimes specific months of every year, but not exact dates. The whole shebang started with that. Almost as if it had been prearranged in some way, almost as if it was part of my programming. When I did have a fiancé prior to that, I was only 15, so we couldn't legally marry, and I suppose the engagement was unofficial. He left. Now this I do remember. I'm pretty certain it was the 25th of April 1970. And it was less than a month after that I started screaming when I discovered I had these parasites in my pubic hair. It did in fact strongly resemble miniature crabs. His name was John, well, Jon, of course it couldn't have been his real name as he was Iranian. Karamian. John Karamian. And he left, he was a sailor, he went to go back home to Iran. But there was never any doubt in my mind that he would come back. And he did. We wrote letters for a long, long time. And his sister, Shamsi, wrote me letters as well. And what I had certainly never said in a video before, don't know if I said it in my book. He came back in 1972, by which time I was unrecognisable. And I do mean unrecognisable. He couldn't recognise me. I don't know what kind of things went on in Iran under the Shah and prior to Ayatollah Khomeini, but he swore it wasn't me. He said, "You are not Susan." He couldn't pronounce Susan. His English was pretty good, but not perfect. "You are not Susan." And my brother, in a text a few years ago, asked me what had happened to me while I was still in school that changed me overnight. I'm assuming that is what he was referring to. No, I wasn't Susan. My figure had bloomed quite a bit. Between 15 and 17. But that wasn't it. I wasn't the same person. Absolutely, definitely not the same person. I couldn't smile, for a start. And that has more or less stuck with me through all of the years. People smile at me and I can't smile back. Most of the time. Very, very rarely. Then, of course, he asked if I was still a virgin. And I told him no. At which point, all the gifts that he had brought for me and for my parents were taken back. So, when the Ayatollah took over in 79/80, I actually had not seen John Karamian for a very long time. But, of course, I still remembered him. My first fiancé at a time when I still believed in love. I did love my husband. Of course, that was years later. 10 years later. Well, it was 1979/80 then. The same year the Ayatollah kicked off, actually. And while I'm on, I may as well say I've hated Islam for a very long time now, because I became aware through the newspapers of exactly what would have happened to John and his family as supporters of the Shah. I also became aware that westernized young women such as the girl who would have been my sister-in-law, Shamsi, if they were caught wearing lipstick, were having their lips cut off with scissors. So when I'm accused of Islamophobia, oh yes, absolutely guilty. Detestable religion. And terrible for women and children. I told my brother, apparently for the first time last night, exactly what had gone on in my marriage. I.e. a work-shy husband who went to Amsterdam for 6 months, courtesy of Edmund Hutter, to work at Schiphol Airport and didn't send a red cent home. If only that had been the worst of it. The violence was the worst of it. But by that time I mistook it for love. Every chance I ever had of any kind of a normal life went out the window the day my father gave me crab lice. The prospects wouldn't have been all that great due to the 15 years preceding that, but that was definitely the last straw. I actually thought it was okay for my husband to beat the shit out of me, simply because my father patted him on the back the next day after I'd spent the night in hospital. This was 5 weeks after the wedding. I'd spent the night in hospital, and I was going into the police station, presumably to make a statement, and Bob was on his way out, and my father patted him on the back. That told me what my worth was, and that I was somebody who thoroughly deserved to have the shit beaten out of me. Rubber stamped by my father. I'm really not sure how I'm supposed to feel about him. when Christians tell me that if he did anything of the things that I say he did, he will be burning in hell, I am inclined to think, hooray. Let's hope hell exists. Because that has been my life, quite honestly. Oh, there have been good times, I have. But my idea of a good time is about 10 notches down from anyone else's idea. Right now, a good time for me is breathing properly. That's it. And then I think about my mother, who could not stand my husband, just to be said. But whether that was because she beat me or what, I really don't know. She used to call him face ache. No, it was my face that ached, mother. Although you may have had a taste of the same thing, and I'm certain that you did. Yeah. And then when I fell in love with a woman, there have been two human loves in my life. Sexual human loves. I have had 2 dogs I've loved, and 2 children I've loved, and not in that order. The 2 romantic loves I've had, 1 male, 1 female, have both been deeply abusive, both of them. And I grieved for a year after I broke up from the woman who treated me like shit from day one. Love for survivors.